Hello friends, this is Reverend Paul Jansen from United Reformed Church in Somerville, New Jersey. I'm coming to you on the weekend of June 11th, 2023. I'll actually be out of town this weekend, but I wanted to keep up our relationship with a message each week. And so I'll be reading from the Gospel according to Matthew, from the 9th chapter, verses 9 through 13, and then offering a brief meditation. As Jesus passed on from there, he saw a man called Matthew sitting at the tax office, and he said to him, "Follow me." And Matthew rose and followed him. And as Jesus sat at table in the house, behold, many tax collectors and sinners came and sat down with Jesus and his disciples. And when the Pharisees saw this, they said to his disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" But when Jesus heard it, he said, "Those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. Go and learn what this means. I desire mercy and not sacrifice. For I came not to call the righteous, but sinners." I came not to call the righteous, but sinners. Well, I think I'd like to learn what it means. I desire mercy and not sacrifice. I think I'd like to learn that because I don't rightly know, though I have a few hints about how to get closer to an answer. It seems that Jesus puts mercy together with sinners here, sinners who know they've messed themselves up and messed their friendships up and their own families sometimes, the world. Doesn't it look like what Jesus wants for those folks is mercy? I mean, that's what he wants us to give them? His kindness? If he wants us to learn it, why would we learn it other than that we practice it? And on the other side is the sacrifice and the righteous. Folks who don't just do the right thing most of the time, but want others to see them doing the right thing, or at the very least want to see themselves doing the right thing, and so they want to know that they're the good guys in this world, the folks who more or less have it together, the kinds of people that other people should want to be like. That would be something, wouldn't it? What do we give them? What do we give the righteous? Well, if it's us, I suppose we give ourselves a bit of comeuppance each week, a weekly reminder that we have erred and strayed from God's ways. We have done those things which we ought not to have done, and we have not done those things that we ought to have done. We give ourselves a dose of reality that brings us to our knees. Not long ago, I got a call late at night. Someone was in front of the church and needed some help. So I came over, not knowing who it was. Well, it turns out it was a woman named Cheryl, and Cheryl was as high as a kite. She could barely walk straight. She had tons of energy, but one sentence didn't lead on to the next. But I could see, it takes some practice doing this. I could see the anguish in her eyes, even by the dim streetlights. She had messed up badly, although she didn't exactly say, "I messed up." She used another phrase. Blood was running down the arm that she'd jabbed heroin and cocaine into not too much long before I got there, and she'd botched the job pretty fantastically. Cheryl didn't need to go to the hospital. It didn't seem to me. Maybe I overstepped my expertise, but I was pretty sure I could see that. What she needed more than anything, was for someone not to look at her with contempt. She needed somebody who would walk alongside her and just listen to her, maybe catch her if she started to fall. What Cheryl needed was someone to help her see that just because she had messed up, that didn't make her a mess up. I suppose I could get all pious and tell you that that what she needed was Jesus, and she did, but she really didn't need a stained glass holy man. She needed a friend. She needed mercy. She needed a little kindness. And don't get me wrong, I'm no hero by any stretch of the imagination, but at the time I walked with her for 20 minutes or so. What else was I going to do at that time of night? I walked with her, just walked and listened and occasionally said a few words. I did try to see to it that Cheryl's arm started to heal up, and sure enough, after 10 minutes or so, the blood had started to clot, and it had started to take care of itself. Listen, I count it a privilege, I'm speaking to you members of United Reformed Church anyway, a privilege to stand in for all of you in that half an hour or so. I could be the church on your behalf. I could be for her a gift of forgiveness, an offering of mercy. And mercy's part of this story, but it's not the whole story, really, is it? Did you miss this detail in the story? As Jesus sat at table, at the table where you sit down to eat, where Jesus sat down to eat, so many times, that time he sat at table and Mary poured perfume on his feet, that time he sat down with sex workers and sellouts to the occupying army, and man, did that get the tongues a-clucking. That time he went to eat at a wedding feast and they almost ran out of wine, so he topped it off with a 160-gallon hit. And these stories they're not just told when Jesus himself physically sat down to eat. Sometimes he didn't sit down, well, like when he had 5 loaves and 2 fishes to feed 5,000 men, apart from the men and women and the children. Sometimes he just told stories about others sitting down to eat. And that was that time he spent at his best friend's house with Martha spending her time sweating in the kitchen and getting the table ready while Mary lollygagged with Jesus out on the front porch in the cool breeze. There was that time he sat down with his Passover friends, and he took the bread and broke it and took the cup and blessed it. Jesus spent an awful lot of time eating, didn't he? I mean, maybe no more than you or I do, but there aren't that many stories about him at all, and a pretty high percentage of them have to do with eating. So I can't help but wonder whether Jesus wanted to learn about that too, about how mercy is manifest in our meals. I mean, I wonder whether Jesus wanted us to learn how to eat with folks who are hungry or downhearted or suspect. Last week, and again I'm speaking to you folks at United who know who I'm talking about, I learned that our friend Chris died. Not Chris Hogan, the one who's got a white beard and long hair and people think he looks like Santa Claus. Not that one, but the other Chris. The Chris, who would help me with my sermons every so often, or overshare when we gave reasons to be thankful. Hey, good job, everybody. Yeah, that Chris. Well, he's gone now. He's gone. Gone to the God who is all about mercy. Gone to Jesus who loved him enough to die for him. Chris came to worship fairly often, and he came for worship fairly often. I think he always enjoyed the music especially. But he also came for the food. He was honest about that. Soup kitchens aren't generally open on Sundays, so a few cookies and a hot cup of joe were quite the gift. And oh man, on those Sundays when we ate mini meals, man, they were especially a treat. And you might remember that the last Sunday he was with us, we celebrated his birthday, and it just about melted his heart. Because we didn't turn him away, and we accepted him like you accept the uncle who comes to Thanksgiving dinner half potted. He may be in the bag, but he's your kin. Chris came for the food, and aside from mercy, food is a pretty big gift. Because just as our hungry souls, our souls get hungry for a taste of kindness, our Our stomachs beg to be satisfied every few hours, relentlessly, relentlessly. I'm sad Chris is gone. He didn't do us any harm, did he? But just by trusting us enough to come back again and again, he showed us that our daily bread is a mighty sign that God hasn't taken the last train for the coast. Now, I know we church folks get to waxing theological and pious about things, and we use big words like salvation and mystery and hope, and mostly we don't understand them at all. But Cheryl and Chris, they know what salvation means because they know what true desperation means. They know how mysterious life is, how life somehow puts millions of dollars into one person's hands just because the person had the great fortune to get born, and how hard it is sometimes to squeeze pennies out of life, no matter how hard you work. They know what hope is and what it's like to lose it, and how hard it is to get back once it's gone. I don't suppose either Cheryl is or Chris was righteous by our standards. They don't act right or dress right or think right or worship right. But God desires simple mercy, not highfalutin sacrifice. Jesus didn't come for the righteous, but for sinners. What else then do we have to offer people than what God offers us? Manna, that strange food in the wilderness, and mercy. Food, whether it's cubes of bread and sips of juice for all, or Costco muffins and a cup of coffee, food and forgiveness. That's what we have to offer. It's nice to do all sorts of things together, don't get me wrong, but I can't help but wonder what might happen if we put all our energies into becoming a true home where people's souls got put back together again. You know, most folks in this world mostly need companionship and a second chance. And hey, listen, at United, we do okay at that. We do okay. I hope you heard me send some affirmation your way. We do okay at it, and we could do better. We could do better. Sometimes we offer forgiveness. We accept folks the way we are, but we don't offer them much in the way of helping them with the food of getting their lives back together. And sometimes we offer the food, I mean literally food, but our friends sit alone at the table at coffee time and nobody sits with them. Nobody sits with them. They sit there all alone. That saddens me. It just saddens me. I'm not angry about it. I'm not tossing any guilt around. I just feel sad when that happens. These days, you know, churches are all over the place, are looking to get their groove back. I guess we're all hoping to fill the pews again one of these days. I think that would be nice too. Sure, I think it would be nice. But, you know, pews full of people who haven't learned mercy, well, they don't count for much in God's economy. In fact, God even talks about assemblies like that kind of raise a stink in his nose. The groove, we just need to keep hammering away at day in and day out, no matter what we're doing, what else we're doing to keep up buildings and to keep money flowing and communications working right. The church's groove is the same as it's always been. Gathering together, breaking bread, opening up our glad and generous hearts to one another with mercy. And if we go down while we're doing that, at least we're doing what God wants us to do. We're sharing our daily bread, and we're forgiving as we've been forgiven. We could do worse. We could do worse than be the answer to Jesus' prayer. Amen. That's a good word for this week. I'll be back next week with a few more words as we keep working our way through the Gospels. In the meantime, may the peace of Christ be with you now and always.